Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you this very sunny week?
It's been a busy one for us, hasn't it? But it's been seemingly quiet in the news.
Most of the time it's been... Yeah, exactly. So most of the time it's been trying to kind of get an understanding of where the kind of news stories are, because there's been a lot that has been kind of put off, we think, by this Fable 5 kind of moratorium, which we'll get into in the AI and tech news. But first of all, shall we start as usual with our property news? We have a number of different stories to chat about, but they're kind of the big thing that happened, and this was more kind of from the country perspective, was Keir Starmer's resignation on Monday. Not entirely unexpected after the victory in the Makerfield by-election by Andy Burnham last Thursday. There's been some, kind of reaction from the industry, people saying, how sort of, clogged up things were, how difficult things have been, and also looking ahead to what Andy Burnham may deliver. What is your take on this, Matt?
From a industry point of view, political point of view, or just general satire in the boiling heat point of view?
Whichever angle you would like to come at it from, but yeah, please don't, start going all militant and, I know your political kind of antenna.
I think there's a danger, isn't there?
Are finely tuned.
The next Prime Minister may well be an Everton fan, but at the same time, it's not a great look for our country, isn't it? That yet again, we've got a changing of the guard less than 2 years after a landslide election victory.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And look, I think all of this uncertainty is bad, right? We had the 2 years ago when they won the election, we had where everything's worse than we thought it was budget in November, which kind of clogged the industry up for the whole year. Then last year we had even more of now we can't get like winter fuel allowance back. We're going to have to do something else horrible budget, which kind of clogged everything up. And now it looks like unless we can get something in place very, very quickly, we're going to have another kind of, lost few months or a lot of months. And that comes hard on the heels of the Iran war. So yeah, it's just frustrating, I think, can we just stop messing about and just kind of get on with stuff? We're supposed to be building 1.5 million houses in this particular parliament. We're already kind of halfway through, and there's very little sign of that happening. So, there is then the worry that are we in line for another housing minister? And I was speaking with somebody who actually works with the government, and they were saying that the current housing secretary is really big on this digital data stuff, but the previous one before him wasn't. So it's very much, it does depend on who the housing ministry is and how hard they push this kind of stuff, whether, this kind of the open property data stuff is going to kind of come through. And every time there's something like this that happens, there is just a slowdown in terms of delivery, in terms of strategy, in terms of, and everybody's just kind of like spinning their wheels, just kind of waiting to crack on. So, look, it's if it is to be a coronation of Burnham, hopefully it'll be fast. Hopefully everybody will, it will enable the market, the property market particularly, to kind of really kick on. I do have a hope that the housing secretary that's there at the moment, not particularly for who he is or his politics or anything like that, but just because there's stability in having him stay there, and he seems to be pretty into the open data side. It would be good if that continued, and I think I would worry if there is more changes in that perspective for sure. Right, next up in our property news, we want to have a little look, and again, this kind of comes down to what decisions are made at government level, regulatory decisions. So there's talk of an insured deposit shake-up, and how that might disrupt millions of tenancies. So the kind of core idea here is government has proposed that the insured tenancy deposit schemes are essentially scrapped. Matt, this is something that I know you're pretty close to. What's your take?
So just a little bit of background on this is, so when the deposit legislation came in way back in April 2006, prior to that, there was basically the deposits when they were collected were either held on behalf of agents, on behalf of landlords by agents, or transferred to landlords, and that's the way the deposit monies flowed, and then it was down to tenants to try to wrestle that sort of funds back. When the deposit legislation finally came in April 2006, there was two parts, because you had to be a member of a scheme. There was two sort of main types of scheme. There was insured, where the money continued to reside with the the agency, but you had to then lodge it with an insured scheme, or there was a custodial where you transferred the money to the custodial scheme, and then the tenant had sight of it. The third party was holding the funds, and the vast majority of deposits from agencies would go off to custodial, because if you're a small 1 or 2 branch, like that, it was easy just to transfer the money off, and the tenant would then need to get the money back from that scheme. Whereas for big, I guess more corporates, they continued holding that money. Obviously, if you've got a lot of money in your bank account, it's a positive thing. And that was called the insured scheme. But there's now a big push, mainly from the lettings partnership based on this article, to scrap them, because there's a lack of transparency as to where that money is when it's being held by the agency in the insured scheme, rather than something like the tenancy deposit scheme, where custodial is a lot more visibility, and there's some sort of question marks where, this money disappears. If you take something like ARPM, who was a outsourced client accounts business, they went pop, and a lot of money allegedly, do I have to say that, maybe went missing because this money was just no visibility around it, and even if it's in an insured scheme. So there is a question of, should anyone have an insured scheme anymore, or should it all be in custodial across sort of the main 3 deposit providers? And I think with all the changes, there is obviously, from an administration point of view, if you're collecting the funds and having to transfer it on, there's a lot more work you have to be doing there, because there's more money moving through your bank account. But then at the same time, these days, there's automation around that sort of thing and reconciliation, and a lot of the client accounting products have caught up with sort of where, at Repeat, we had a bit of a USP originally of automating those processes. Most companies are sort of catching up with that now. So it's definitely better for tenants. It's just whether or not people want to make those changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And throw a bit of AI in it, and it'll probably have to sort it out pretty quickly as well. So again, it's kind of, I think it's just the fact that it's more legislation again, isn't it? It's just kind of like yet more sort of stuff, and it's been thrown at the letting industry again. And it's like, you just kind of think, well, there's fatigue setting in as to, look, do we really have to change our systems again? And I take your point that it's kind of more geared towards sort of the corporates and stuff like that. But yes, I'm sure there'll be some of the mid-sized and smaller agencies kind of caught up in it as well. How big a problem is it? Like you say, ARPM kind of went under, but is it actually, when everything else is going on, the thing that we should be focusing on? But yes, I'm sure and also, if there is a regime change with Andy Burnham, there is definitely going to be a change because Starmer's resigned. How high a priority are they going to make it, or should we just sit there and assume that it's not going to happen? So yes, again, going back to the previous story about uncertainty, hopefully uncertainty will end soon, and hopefully we will all know exactly where we are in the next few weeks, with any luck. Right, our third story in our property news, and we're going a little bit deep into some AI imagery. So this is a story by an international company called Corally. Corally basically help to power some of the portals around the world with some AI insights, particularly. And what they found is there's 1 in 15 listing images carry detectable digital alteration. They said that can be anything from making the sky blue to virtually staging it to, as we've seen some of the more extreme examples over here in the UK, removing shops from next door and removing ceilings from some images as well. So yeah, are you surprised by this, Matt? 1 in 15.
I actually thought it'd be higher, to be honest. It's been something that the sky's blue and such, like, feels like it's almost a standard. But then actually, I've had the sort of privilege, I guess, of going around quite a lot of estate agents this week. And when we've been talking to them, it's been, I guess, the great and the good in a way. But you sort of almost forget when you're in that microcosm of agents that not all of them sort of use Property Box for editing the photos, and have these different approaches of getting quality photographs taken. And if you go on Rightmove, there are still quite a lot that are clearly being taken by someone on what looks like an early Nokia and slapped up on Rightmove, right? So maybe just the sort of agents that would listen to this and we deal with aren't representative of what's going on, and clearly not if only 1 in 14 are being editors.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that maybe in other countries this covers things like in the UAE, Dubai, and America and elsewhere. The sky's actually blue most of the time, so they don't need to. They don't need to digitally enhance it, which is why it's only 1 in 15. But yes, over here, as I look out the window up here in Newcastle, and it's binning down with rain, and we've had some lightning and stuff like that already this morning. It's it's rather different, but yeah, I was just very interested that actually this seems to be measurably, I would say quite significant. I think I was surprised again, kind of knowing, and as I've been traveling around the country talking to loads and loads of agents, on my little tour, that actually, a lot of them aren't using some of these digital tools and aren't necessarily, haven't to this point seen the opportunity of doing that and have assumed that it's too complex, etc. So no, I think I think it's a good sign. I think, as with all these things, making it clear, I think, is the most important thing. In the world of AI, trust is going to be the most important currency that every business has. So the more you can be, upfront about, some of these images have been digitally enhanced, and I think that will stand you and your brands in really good stead, as opposed to, some of the kind of horror stories that you've seen. And like I say, around and about where things have quite clearly been removed. There's been big splashes in the Times or the Sun or something about them, and they really do have an impact on the brands concerned and a long memory of those things having taken place. Yeah, just So more and more, there's some really good stuff to be used to make your presentation of marketing really, really good of the properties. So yeah, do have a play around. Obviously, we're always available as Matt to chat about all these sorts of things. But yes, it is something that I think is going to be increasingly important as we go through, and I think consumers are going to increasingly appreciate that their properties can openly be made to appeal to a wider range of buyers by using some of these tools, for sure. Right, that is the end of our property news this week. Let's have a look at our AI and tech news. Right, so we're going to start, I think probably where we started for the last couple of weeks, which is the Fable 5 debacle over in the States, where, quick recap, Anthropic released 2 weeks ago now, Fable 5, which was their update to their Claude model. It was awesome. It was available for about a day and a half. And then the US government instructed Anthropic that they to control the export of the product. This was the specific way that they went around it. They said, you cannot let foreign nationals use this product. Anthropic has many foreign nationals actually working for it. So actually it then had to just, and there's no way of stopping certain ethnic groups from using this globally available tool. So they had to can it. And to this point, they have not been able to get it back out again. We were all, I think, expecting some other models from the likes of Google, from the likes of OpenAI to drop over the last couple of weeks as well. And it's been like tumbleweed silence, because I think everybody's just kind of waiting and working it out and trying to make sense of it. This is pretty, it's just pretty weird. It's pretty stupid, right? There is no, the fact that the US government is now essentially holding back the development of AI, or the accessibility of AI to the masses, is really quite an uncomfortable spot to be in.
It is very much so, isn't it? We're starting to see sort of the government getting sued over in America because of it, and questioning whether you could even actually take this approach, and is it contributing in various legislations, rules, etc. But actually what it's leaving is, normally you're looking at a new model, pushing the boundaries. Fable 5, the 3 days we had with it was absolutely incredible. But now people think, well, can we trust the foundational models to always be held back? And I think that's probably also what's happening with OpenAI and Google, right? They're thinking, well, I don't want to release something because the rumor was 5.6 from OpenAI is on a par, if not more powerful Mythos. So is it they're going to get sort of tied up in legislation, and with 5.5 being so strong inside Codex, they just sit back and leave it. But I think a lot of people, and certainly things I listen to and read, people start to say, well, actually, let's look at the open weights models, and sort of we've touched on the last couple of weeks. Should we be spinning something up ourselves? Should we be building them into our stack? Because we can't trust what might happen going forward. But there's light maybe at the end of the tunnel, and I think Trump referred to them as, I met them at the G7 and they're nice boys, or words to that effect. Is maybe there's a thawing, maybe it's just further political challenges. I think Sam Altman's a bit better politician when it comes to these things, so maybe they won't be as worried about releasing it. But it's a strange place to be, given what we've had for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and maybe we have been a bit spoiled, with the fact that this has just charged ahead so fast, and the new models have all been so exciting and so on. But yeah, look, it does seem to be very very political. It doesn't seem to. The Anthropic were very open with the government and let everybody play around with Mythos, which is the backbone of Fable 5, before they launched it, including the US government. So everybody kind of had their eyeballs across it. Everybody kind of knew what it was capable of. The thing that the the thing that it apparently can do, or it can be done to it, that is the thing that the American government claims it's worried about, is jailbreaking. All right. So the ability to actually remove the guardrails, and then for, notionally foreign actors to use this as a kind of weapon of mass destruction or whatever. Now, there is to this point, there's been no model release that cannot be jailbroken. It kind of comes as part of the territory. There is risk with all of this sort of stuff. So that they've specifically targeted Anthropic. Obviously, kind of calls back to when Pete Hegseth, the Department of War Secretary over in the States, got really annoyed with Anthropic for not allowing him to use Claude for autonomous killing and also to surveil the US citizens, allegedly. So I think it kind of speaks to personalities rather than necessarily any structural issue. If OpenAI was to launch, 5.6, then, like you said, whether Sam Altman is a more skilled politician or whether it's just that Trump likes OpenAI, like Sam Altman more than Dario Amodei, head of Anthropic, remains to be seen. But yes, the longer this goes on, the more it seems that it's got to be personal / political rather than necessarily anything kind of structural or to do with the product itself. And it's just holding things up. And all the time, I imagine that the Chinese are cracking on. I imagine that it's actually quite helpful potentially for OpenAI and for Google, because if their models were not as good as Mythos, this gives them time to pretend that actually they were going to be as good as Mythos, but we've had to hold it back, and gives them some time to catch up. And in the background to all of this, there is the IPO situation. So actually, Anthropic was literally about to drop its IPO, and this has put a massive kind of hold on that. And does that give OpenAI enough time to kind of catch up and actually get their IPO out first? Because they haven't got any banned models at this point, and they're not. The US government is not sanctioning them at all. Whereas Anthropic is still marked up as an enemy of the US government. So all of this stuff just kind of feels like it's just a mishmash of different sort of politics and personalities and opportunism, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be resolved necessarily without some other without people actually kind of getting sensible about what's important. And what's important is using this technology for good, basically. And that's hopefully at some stage a common sense will break out, but there's no guarantee of that at all. Right. Next up, talking about kind of the big labs and what's happening, personalities, etc. It seems that both Meta and Google have got some big internal problems. So we haven't talked about sort of Google and Meta a lot recently. Regular listeners will remember that Meta went through a big hiring spree February time, I think, certainly early this year, where they spent billions on getting various superstars from the world from everybody else into their lab so that they could then build out the most super duper AI of them all. But now it seems that all is not well inside that particular. Where is it?
No, so we talked about, was it Noam Shazir leaving Google, was it a couple of weeks ago that headed off and joined OpenAI, and they were quite significant. Was it Nobel prizes and sort of very I can't remember, you name checked the
attention is all you need document from 2017 that basically kind of kick-started the whole transformer, which is what the GPTs are built on.
Exactly that. And but now there's even two more researchers, and you've got Jonas Adler and Alexander Pritzel are leaving Google, this time for Anthropic. So there's some serious talent leaking out of Google, and obviously they made I think 2025 was Google's year, basically. They made a massive comeback, didn't they? Don't call it comebacks, to quote a certain hip hop star. But now they are bleeding, and the rate that things are moving, does that set them back quite significantly? There is actually stuff coming out of Google, and some quite cool stuff even last week with computer use, but that's stuff that the other ones have had for a little while now. So is this a dangerous thing? And on the Meta front, you point out before the show that people are saying about the dismal mood and the working environment and obscenity-filled rants of the workers. Like, that's just a normal day in a state agency, isn't it? But it's positive obscenities, though, rather than negative. It doesn't sound positive for those two companies, does it?
No, and like you say, I remember back in the last year, again on the pod, I was absolutely raving about Gemini 3.5 and just thought, right, basically they've had their comeback and they're just going to keep it on, right? They're going to stay ahead. They're so they've got such vast resources to use. They were massively profitable ads business that they can just use to keep feeding, the model. And I thought, pretty much not quite game over. Certainly, Google would be leading the charge for throughout this year and beyond. But yeah, no, this year has very much been the year of kind of Anthropic and Claude. Back end of last year, early this year was when Claude Opus really started to kick on. And yeah, since then, Google has just sort of dropped away, like you say. And it's very strange. But yeah, but internally now that DeepMind is starting to lose, so Google owns DeepMind is starting to lose its talent. When the likes of Andrej Karpathy had a choice of anywhere he wanted to go, he's gone to Anthropic. He hasn't chosen. Yeah, exactly. He hasn't gone to any of the other labs. So, it's just kind of indicative that that's where the action is. So that's where people see, the fun happening there. If you are going to, if your purpose in the world is to advance AI and to kind of make it, good and all that sort of thing, then they're going to Anthropic, and they're potentially going to OpenAI, and they're not doing Google or Meta or any of the others, or Grok, which is also XAI. SpaceX has also been losing people hand over fist. So yeah, there is a bit of musical chairs in it. There's a bit of kind of side Silicon Valley kind of gossip, but I think it is important to note, because if you are losing that kind of talent, then it is that much more difficult to kind of keep pace. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, what Gemini 4 is going to look like, and when it's ever going to see the light of day, if it's ready at all, basically. Right, we are going to move on to a little bit more about OpenAI, and this is more about its Codex. So Codex has really become a bit of a success story for OpenAI, hasn't it? It was something that everybody thought Claude Code was going to kind of take over the world, but actually, quite impressively, OpenAI has come back strongly with Codex, and you're a big fan, Matt, right? This is a particular element that they've released this week that looks really quite impressive.
So Codex has been obviously around for a little while now, and they are what we've started referring to as harnesses. So you've got the sort of foundational model, be it Claude or ChatGPT in the background, but then you've got the harness, which is the application that you're working with. And actually, some of the leaps we're seeing are as much in the harness evolution, so Claude Code, Claude Cowork, or Codex, as they are actually in the point releases we're getting for the models. And Codex has actually got a new release every Thursday, and it's happening despite the challenge we talked about around Fable 5, and that side of things. And actually, every Thursday something great's coming out of Codex. So what happened, if you think about it, with Claude Code is everyone sort of thought Claude Code, it's inaccessible, it's for coders. And at the start it was, because you had to use it inside the terminal. And then as a graphical user interface came in, and then it moved to Cowork, which is much more focused on sort of knowledge work term, projects and slides and presentations and research and image generation and all the things you or I do. And Codex, again, you could look at it and say, well, that's just purely for developers. But actually, yes, it's brilliant on development, but you can use it for all the things you use to co-work. And this feature that's been released this week is record and replay. So if we think about skills, which all these harnesses use, and to sort of pare it back, a skill is basically a file that contains quite a long prompt that you can then get the harness to pull into action at any time. And I know it's an example I've used before, but it's like in the Matrix when they plugged cartridges in the back of Neo's head and somebody wakes up and knows Kung Fu. And it's like, that's basically what a skill is. In that instance, you give it all the context it needs to go off and do something. But they can take a little while to build and prompt and sort of refine. Whereas this, from Codex now, the record and replay, you can literally start it running, go off and do the task that you're asking it to sort of build a skill around, and it'll actually watch you. So you could probably, let's take our podcast, so you might log into the mail shop that you've gone out, look at the subscriptions, gather the data, go into Spotify, go into Apple Podcasts, generate the data points, bring them all together, and then produce some interesting analytics. And going through those steps that we manually do, so record and replay will then build out the prompt that can then be reused from that point on. So it's literally watching what you do and then learning from that, rather than you having to try prompt it into action. So it's really powerful. And as you always sort of make the point, you're on a Mac, I'm on a PC. It's not available but for me, but you can install Codex and get cracking with it today.
Yeah, even though I don't usually normally use Codex, I might just send you a video of me using it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so you're jealous, basically. But yeah, no, look, it sounds really amazing, and I think these are the kind of supercharged ways that AI is going to kind of just start to change how we do things. Because if it can, let's say you are going in trying to get a report out of I don't know, Repeat or out of Street or something like that, basically it's quite a complicated one. It's one that you want regularly though. Setting this up to watch you, and then it will go and do this for you. That's the kind of stuff that is game changing. Suddenly you are freed up. This report just lands. You don't have to ask anybody for it. So those are the kinds of things that I think, as we get deeper into AI and as agents get much more comfortable with what AI can do, particularly I think around the security side of things as well. Again, talking to agents as I've been traveling around, I was up in Scotland, the last couple of days. The security angle is really the thing that I think worries most businesses out there, not necessarily just a state agency. So, again, we've got some really interesting bits and pieces around the security side of things and how to get comfortable with that. But yes, once you are, then what this stuff can do already, and if we haven't said it before, this is as bad as it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better from here. Obviously, assuming that the Trump administration lets it out. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a brilliant use case and example there, right? Because it can feel inaccessible at times, like the skill and understanding what it is, and then trying to write it, and then think about how to get these harnesses to run them. I think that the harnesses are basically becoming super apps, and they're going to evolve into basically operating systems that everything lives inside because they have browsers. But if you pare it back, just that example you gave there, Codex. And Claude Code's got it as well, but Codex is an application. It looks a lot like ChatGPT, but the three things you talked about there, you could use record and replay. So you show it once how to run on your computer, the reporting, reap it, generate it, download it, do what you need to do with it. It then goes off and builds everything it needs. You then have a scheduled task so that every day at 7 a.m. it goes off and uses, thirdly, Codex computer use to do that on your machine while you're making your coffee, brushing your teeth, reading the morning papers, whatever it might be. So when you do sit down, everything's been done for you. And it's off those three pieces of Codex. You're not having to write a code or a prompt or a skill or anything else. You've set that up, and then every morning at 7 or however you set that scheduled task, it'll just be there ready for you to start and to basically consume.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and a lot of these, and without kind of overplaying it, as I've gone around the country, what we're doing is little workshops on this sort of stuff. So come along, go find where we're at. But yes, this is the kind of stuff that I think is the practical stuff, right? It's not this AI, because AI is like huge and scary, and is it going to come and kill us all or take my jobs or whatever? But actually, in your office right now, there are things that you are doing that you don't have to do, and it's like, it is so freeing. So yeah, listen, so as we always say, go play, try it out. The only way that you're going to understand this stuff is by doing it. So yeah, it's this is another example and a really good one, and of how, yes, this can really, really help you in your business out there. All right. That is all we've got time for in our AI and tech news. Let's dive into our tool of the week. All right. This is so good. It's ByteDance. So TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, has Seedance. So SEE Dance 2.5. So 2.5 is out. Again, regular listeners, viewers will remember when I was doing the videos for the tour, the one where I'm kind of barreling down various streets, which is all AI for 40 different locations. And that was Seedance 2.0. And that had 15-second, videos that are amazing. The first time, genuinely, when I've looked at it and gone, that really just looks like me kind of walking down Edinburgh Street. And this is 2.5, so it's another step change. And a couple of big things in it is it does, instead of Seedance 2.0 does 15 seconds, which again was longer than pretty much anybody else. Google VO did 12. So Seedance 2.0 did 15 seconds. Seedance 2.5 does 30 seconds. All right. It also allows you to put in 50 references. So actually, in terms of being able to keep control of the setting, the characters, the tools that they're using and all that sort of stuff, it's just insane. Matt, are you excited as I am about this?
Yes, mainly to see what you create on this. Oh, exactly. Is it going to be? Is it another sunny weekend where you can lock yourself in a dark room and play with it? Stay up in Newcastle where there's thunder and lightning, but when you created the Bittersweet Symphony style video, video, I'm reliably told, is 4 minutes and 38 seconds long. So in that number of prompts, you can quickly stitch together almost a whole film, like you said before. And just the quality is insane. And I think that point you made there about the reference, like the fact you can upload 50 reference files when the previous number had just barely been into double digits, really does allow you to create some quite memorable stuff. And I was listening to something where just the volume of actual TV companies who are now using AI, and albeit American models, to generate video that they're not even acknowledging, but is interesting. And when are they going to actually just start fessing up that these Chinese models are even better? Because ByteDance is learning off TikTok, right? And then that's the incredible volume of content that they've got from that point of view.
Yeah, and variety. Yes, I know you can go to YouTube and there's a lot of historical stuff and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, there is so much different variety of different people, different things that they're doing. There was the old TikTok dances, but now, there's a lot of kind of other stuff going on. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal. And yeah, as you say, now that I think this weekend is going to bin down with rain. It's certainly bin down with rain right now here. So yes, just like last weekend, I ignored the sunshine. I can ignore the rain and mess about with even more exciting video stuff as we go through the weekend. I may occasionally, having not seen the kids for a bit, I might say hello to them as well, I suppose. Right, that is it for our property and AI report this week. Thank you very much indeed for listening in. I hope that you've got some useful stuff from it again. Now, we will be back again in 7 days' time to talk even more about the property and AI news of the week. Hopefully, also Fable 5 might be out, but we've said that for the last 2 weeks. Matt, what are you up to this weekend?
Probably avoiding public transport, because that's been interesting this week. How about yourself, apart from the sitting in a dark room with the video models?
Yeah, I haven't really got much beyond that, actually. Sitting still is going to be good, having driven all the way from Bradford, Lancaster, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dundee, Newcastle, York this week. So yes, looking forward to sitting still, rocking gently backwards and forwards for a little while. But yes, looking forward to catching up with everybody again next week. And we will see you all in 7 days' time. Thanks very much. Ta-ra.
Take care.